Maxim has added a heatsink to meet the thermal compliance. I need to accommodate this in the mechanical design and send a revised placement back to the hardware designer, as there are interferences between the components and the new heatsink. Design Rule Manager in NX allows me as a mechanical designer to configure design rules that identify interferences between components, board geometry, mechanical models like the heatsink we have in our design, and copper elements. I'll first create a quick rule between components to each other. This is a 3D clearance rule that states that any component less than 0.175 mm to another component will result in a violation. I also have several corporate standard rules that have already been defined in my template assembly that were automatically created in my project. Now that my rules are defined in Design Rule Manager, I can now perform an analysis to identify any interferences in the NX assembly. I have several discrete component-to-component interferences that I can see in Design Rule Explorer that I need to review. The first set of violations appear to be discrete components placed on the secondary surface of the PCB. I can accept these violations as it was placed by the electrical engineer using their own design rules. However, I can also see there are several interferences with the heatsink we inserted due to the thermal simulation. There are certain components that we need to move to avoid the interference with the heatsink. You can see as I move these parts to avoid this interference, I can see in Design Rule Explorer the violation disappear when they match our design constraints. This allows me to find and resolve interferences very quickly in my design. Once I am satisfied with the placement that I have done to avoid these interferences with my mechanical assembly, I will send a proposal file of the newly moved components and heatsink to the hardware engineer to review and apply in their design.
I have a new update from the mechanical designer which I need to import in my PCB design. I will open MCAD Collaborator and review the content. I can see that the mechanical designer moved several components in my design. I initially see no issues and accept all changes and apply the proposal file. The proposal file was accepted. However, our DRC identified an issue with U4007. This is based on our component-to-component clearance in Expedition. They are not known by NX. I will need to resolve displacement issues and send a counter-proposal to the mechanical designer. Define the placement of U4007 will not break our electrical design rules. The initial placement from the mechanical designer moved U4007 too close to the sodium connector and violated our component-to-component design rules. However, the IC is currently colliding with the heatsink. To resolve the problem, I will move the IC and the capacitor to resolve this violation. As I move the component, I can see dynamically when I resolve the problem from changing the component color from red to yellow. Now that I have applied my changes, I will send a counter-proposal of the component placement of the IC and the capacitor that I moved back to the mechanical design to be applied in the printed circuit card assembly within NX.